Hi everybody, Richard Tromans here again, Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're doing another special interview all about Legal Innovators California, our landmark event in San Francisco, taking place June the 11th and 12th. With me is Daniel Porus, who works at Legatics, and he's going to be one of the speakers at the event. Hi Dan, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Richard.
Good to have you on the show. Before we get into talking about the conference and what you'll be talking about there, let's just briefly catch up with where Legatics is. Where is the company now? What are you focusing on?
So we're a legal transaction management platform, been around for about 10 years now. The big focus for us at the moment, we're very much in the end-to-end legal transaction management space. So provide a solution that provides for people to come together to collaborate on and close their deals. And the big trend we've been seeing is a lot of growth, particularly in the US. So I've been spending a lot of time over there for a while now. We've had a large number of the top global firms, particularly being based in London. The UK had been the place where we'd seen our initial growth. So we've worked with the majority of the top 20 firms that are UK based, but we now have over a quarter of the AmLaw top 40 and a number in the AmLaw 200. So that is an area of significant growth for us.
And in terms of, what the company is doing in terms of your sort of products and features and so forth, I mean, is generative AI becoming more part of it now, or?
So AI is absolutely a part of what we're doing at Legatics. We've always been technology agnostic. It's more about what is the problem and then how is it best solved. So there are three core components to what Legatics does. We have a collaborative lists component, so basically turning static checklists into digital lists. We've got a signing component, so partially with an integration with DocuSign, but also a wet ink signing process. And then closing settle binder creation at the end. We do have AI components that come into the creation of the digital lists. So it is a model that uses pattern recognition to actually very quickly turn a checklist in a table or underlying text into a digital list. And then also as part of our signing workflow, we have a pre-trained AI model that actually identifies where signature pages are within an underlying document and helps to very quickly create signature packs. And then similarly, using that pre-trained AI model to stitch documents back together when you've got the final executed, the signature pages to create an executed version.
Gotcha. Interesting. So it sounds like you're using both generative AI and sort of the older NLP machine learning approach.
Yeah, that's correct.
Gotcha. So let's just go onto the conference a bit. So what's your subject that you'll be speaking about? I understand you'll be doing a standalone speech of your own.
Yeah, I am doing a standalone. It's focused on the hidden goldmine that law firms are sitting on in legal transactions. And basically what we're going to be exploring in that talk is that law firms are sitting on this goldmine of data. They don't know it yet. And basically, if we think about Legatics or transactions generally, law firms day to day, they're handling millions of dollars in deals. But while lawyers typically focus on closing the deals, there's actually a huge amount of value in the data that's being collected along the way. But most of it's never really being captured or utilized. And there's a huge opportunity there. Transaction data can transform how law firms operate, how they compete, how they grow. But it's often missed in traditional workflows. So that's what the discussion will really focus on and dive into.
And what kind of value can you get from it? I mean, we were just talking off camera about the difference between using AI and data in general for driving efficiency, but what more can we get out of the data?
So there are a number of components to it. Ultimately, a lot of that data can be really useful for more data-driven decision making. So a lot of firms are collecting data, but some actually struggle to turn it into actionable insights. So quite often the C-suite within organizations are trying to really work out what data actually matters, how can data connect with business outcomes, and then how can we actually articulate the value of some of that data to the board and to the partnership. So there are patterns that do emerge in the data. So there is the ability, so taking maybe a couple of real world applications, thinking about profitability on deals. So we've had even, separately, people have run analyses with certain types of technology in terms of the efficiency savings that it has, when using a tool and not using a tool, and then, analyzing the impact on profitability. You need underlying data to start with in terms of, what was the status quo without using a particular tool in order to do that. So it does require some level of, baseline data there. But what further can happen with, like a transaction management platform, for example, is you can track the number of staff that are involved on a particular deal size, the timelines, and sort of think more about how to better allocate resources and predict profitability on deals, particularly when you're combining that with some of the other data sources of information. For client insights, so transaction data can reveal maybe trends to do with a particular client. If you had a trend,
and what's market,
exactly,
and then you can come back to it for your next deal, and you've got your data.
Well, the other thing is, if you just know that you have a trend of repeat deals with a particular client, a very regular flow of we get at least 1 or 2 engagements a month, and then you're not getting an engagement. Now, there are other ways to track that sort of information, but some of that, can be captured as well when you're, at scale using using a transaction management platform, and that can really give a competitive edge versus competitors. It can help deepen the relationship with your client. So if something like that's happened, it might flag, okay, we should get in touch, find out what's going on. Is it a bit of a downturn for them? Is there something else that's at play? Or maybe it is that something's happened and the work's actually going elsewhere, for example.
Yeah, it's very interesting actually. It's interesting as well to see how Legatics has evolved. So you start off with what is a very sort of clear productivity tool. We help you do transactions more easily. But because you're right in the center of that process and the data is all around you, you can collect it, you can clean the data, you can organize the data, and then you can create new value across the whole breadth. So you've got the operational side of like, well, who did this deal last time? Where are the teams? Maybe you can connect to billing software and you can figure out how many hours were billed, what was the profitability like, and so forth. And then, just saying, like, you can figure out what's market, certain clauses. And I guess this perhaps is I was talking to someone the other day about how when one part of the tech ecosystem changes and all the other parts do. And I suppose to some degree this is almost like a sort of micro example in that as you dig deeper and deeper into the data, you create more and more value, which then spreads out into different areas.
No, 100%. And if you think about other insights that you're sort of gaining, that one of the challenges with a lot of the data that people are gathering at the moment, and speaking to firms as I have been, senior stakeholders, Gen AI obviously is a huge theme, but another huge one is data, and people are really thinking about how can we, how are we capturing that data effectively. And one of the big challenges is a lot of the data it's unstructured data, and one of the great benefits with having a platform for managing the transactions is it actually structures all of that data for you. So I'll give another practical example. If you think of, so my background was doing M&A, and if you're using a transaction management platform for doing your M&A deal, then ultimately, let's say with the sale and purchase agreement, so you can track who's holding the pen traditionally, but then ultimately you have time stamped for every version of the sale and purchase agreement. So you have a data point around when was the first draft provided, what was the time between first draft and second draft. So you've got sort of, duration there as to how long it takes to turn a document. You also, because it's time stamped every time there's a new version of the document, okay, on average, there are 5 turns of a sale and purchase agreement. But maybe when you're up against law firm X, there are 9 turns of a sale and purchase agreement versus when you're against law firm Y, there are only 3. And if you're then combining that with some of the some billing information, or it becomes of interest to the pricing teams, for example, to actually think about how can I more effectively, price for the deals. And this isn't uncommon. This has been happening in, for example, litigation matters for quite some time, where people analyze, when they're up against a certain judge, for example, what's the potential outcome. But from a transactional side of things, it's largely been guesswork. So, what's quite exciting here is imagining a future where data doesn't just sort of inform decisions, but it can actually drive them.
It's interesting. It makes me think of Facebook. I mean, people initially were like, "Wow, you can go onto Facebook and you can like send photographs of your cat to, your mother-in-law." And people were amazed when that first became possible. And then people went, and then well, all the advertisers were like, "Yeah, but we can collect behavioral data, and then this is going to be amazing." And of course, from the user's perspective, I suppose there's pros and cons. You could say that they then get the data, the advert and so forth,
Mm.
it's going to be amenable to them. But if bringing it back to the legal context, I mean, maybe the reality is that both the Legatics and many other tools, in the long run, the real value of those tools is not going to be the tool itself. It's possible even the tool becomes table stakes and is
Hmm. Hmm.
actually all the other things around it that become really valuable. You know what I mean? So like helping people to finish off their transactions is like, yeah, okay, well, we'll pay you X
Yeah.
amount a year to do that. But the bit we really want you to do is all that data collection and analysis.
100%. So I think a large part of what the talk will be,
Mm,
it's there are elements of what people are doing now with the data, but a lot of it is imagining that future state of
mm,
where can we get to with all the value that is in this underlying data, and
mm,
it looks at it is this almost call to action for the C-suite within within law firms that
mm,
this is the reason to take action now, because there's a degree to which you can have a competitive advantage by actually embracing that data today, but
mm,
it does take time to get things in order. Like those who are already using a transaction management platform
mm,
will be collecting that data and increasingly doing so as adoption continues to grow,
mm.
etc. But you're going to be increasingly left behind if you're not doing that
So,
already
sounds to me, if you don't mind me saying, that you need to merge with some type of billing system company or that kind of thing, so that you can reach out more deeply into the operational side.
I think it's a good point, Richard. I mean, ultimately, we already see the role that we play as part of a broader ecosystem, and to date, it's been more about where are the key places that lawyers work, which is really
Mm,
your document management systems and integrating with things like DocuSign, which we do.
mm,
But you're right. I mean, as we progress to this next phase, it's more what are the business of law components that are really important to people. And at the moment, you can download that data from Legatics and combine it with the other sources. But what if it did combine with billing information, resourcing, resource allocation,
mm.
as part of that broader we are part of an ecosystem, and it will become
Mm.
increasingly important in
Well, and
terms of that.
also, I mean, there's the other aspect is that, as we move more into this, through this generative AI era, and rather than just talking about moving to fixed fees, law firms actually do it, in part because the clients stop just talking about it and actually demand fixed fees as well, because they get their head around
Yeah,
it. Once we get to that point, so you've got the business law benefits, like cost, margins, who should be on the job and so forth, perhaps even CRM aspects. But then because so much time in a transaction is spent just finding stuff, as I mentioned the other day on LinkedIn,
mhm,
right? And you see that in litigation and in transactional work. So much stuff, so much work, so much billable time is just spent being a gopher, a human
mhm,
gopher,
mhm.
right? Which is ridiculous, right? But once you move into a fixed fee state of mind and you're using more AI and automation and tools like your own, then the faster you can get through that, the better. The faster you can draw up precedents, or what market clauses and so forth, or approaches, or elements of a negotiation that will speed up all the lower value bits. I mean, you can get to the nitty gritty faster, so you can actually increase profitability. So, the thing is that there's like a sort of confluence, right? So like you're moving more into data. Generative AI is going to push people to become more time aware and realizing that time isn't the best denominator of value. The clients will see that too, hopefully, and then it
Yeah.
all comes together. So you become more valuable. The law firms actually make more profit.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always felt. I mean, this is a slight tangent, but there's a bit of an access to justice point in here as well, because if
Mhm.
ultimately, you can help lawyers and law firms become more efficient and provide their legal services more
Mm,
more cost effectively, then
mm,
actually there's potentially a whole segment of the market. Well, for a start, maybe some of the clients will give
mm,
more of their work to the law firms because it's delivered in a more effective way. But
mm,
there's also potentially a whole segment of the market that hasn't been turning to law firms to get legal advice, but it may become more cost effective to do
Would
so.
you, I mean, do you work with small law, as it were? Do you work with the smaller firms?
Yeah, we do. We do. I mean, the, the majority are the bigger global firms. That's where we started. But the nature of Legatics has been we have a very strong network effect, and quite often, the client or other counterparties, sometimes smaller firms, are invited to the platform as well and see the benefits, and they do proactively get in touch. So yeah, we work with quite a range, including smaller firms, and they get a lot of benefit. Even there's sort of two segments. There are the big complex transactions that really benefit from transaction management, but then actually some of the smaller deals, the rinse and repeat ones, there's the need for efficiency there as well. So
And again, it goes back to the billing point, which is that smaller firms are more likely, not always, not guaranteed, but more likely to offer a fixed fee or a
yeah,
scope fee that they're actually going to stick to, because not because they're gaming it in any way, or it's simply because, as you say, it's a rinse and repeat deal, so it's more likely to stay on track.
yeah,
In which case, anything that helps them to get it done, on time or under time, it's pure profit, isn't it? And they can take on more work and so forth. I mean, this is what I find fascinating about generative AI, in particular, just automation in general in the legal world. And what attracted me to this area is just that once you start digging into it, you start to realize this isn't about dropping a tool into the status quo. It's about the entire status quo evolving into something different. The entire industry starts to
yeah,
operate in a different way, which I truly, honestly believe is going to happen. I think you're starting to see little examples of that happening. I wouldn't claim that the whole thing's changing. I think that would be way too ambitious. But we're starting to see little positive mutations, little within this ecosystem. And you're like, if all these things kind of fuse together and then sort of propagate and connect again,
yeah.
then propagate and then connect again, things will happen.
I'm feeling like there's a momentum at the moment, like
Mhm.
I haven't experienced really over the past 8 to 10 years. It really feels like something, there's something different happening here that's driving meaningful and lasting change in the industry, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, no, and that's a great thought to leave on. Just bringing it back to Legal Innovators, which of course is completely focused on these questions. Legal Innovators, both in California, New York, and London, all three conferences are sort of built on the DNA of artificial lawyer, which is all
Mm.
about exploring the frontier, pushing that frontier, pioneering, thinking about big systemic change, right? For you, because you'll be attending the event, what kind of things will you be looking out for?
So what I'm really excited about, I think it's a great lineup of speakers and attendees. So very much looking forward to hearing, the other speakers and getting an opportunity to connect with them as well. But it is more generally getting the opportunity to connect with folks in the West Coast at the event. I've spent a lot of time in the US over the past couple of years, but it's mostly been East Coast and in the Midwest. So very much looking forward to reconnecting with people on the West Coast.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. And actually, as you've probably seen, from articles, I mean, we've got Google, we've got Meta, we've got Uber, we've got a whole bunch of really major companies from the US that are going to be there, as you'd expect, many of them based on the West Coast. We've got investment funds. And also, I can tell you now, because I'll be announcing it next week, Y Combinator is coming.
Oh,
Yeah, which is
fantastic.
we're very excited about, and we're very excited to have you there. And we've got a bunch of great speakers from law firms and a whole group of people from in-house as well. And if you want to know more about Legal Innovators or pick up a ticket for the event, which is June 11th and 12th in central San Francisco, just type Legal Innovators California into Google, and you will be led to the main website, or have a look either side of this video and you will see a link. But that's all the time we have for now. Just want to say thank you very much to Dan,
Thanks, Richard.
and hope to see you there. Thank you.